Look what you did, you little jerk!
What's going on, jerk faces? Welcome to a very voyeuristic episode of the Circle of Jerks podcast. I'm your host, Rob, and today we'll be discussing Peeping Tom from 1960, directed by Michael Powell. But before we do that, let's meet everyone on the panel here. Of course, we got Andy, the stalwart. How you doing, buddy?
What up?
And returning guest, fan favorites, John. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Fan favorite. That's very flattering. Thank you guys so much. Andy, good to see you, my friend. Rob,
good
to see you as
dude.
well.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. But yeah, awesome to be back on.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to give a little props to Rob because they just actually he's part of another podcast, the Cinemigos, just released their first episode on wherever you get your podcast. So congratulations, Cobra, one of my comfort foods from the 80s. So congratulations, Rob.
Oh, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, another fan favorite, Heidelberg, and I have been working pretty hard on that, getting that podcast out. Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff coming up there. So that's and nothing changing here because we're still doing stuff over here on Circle of Jerks.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of doing some of our unique films that we talk about over here. So, for the uninitiated, John, who haven't met you before, if you're coming for the first time, where can people find you? Like you're on a podcast as well. What do you do?
I don't know. Maybe I do a pod. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm a part of Cut Above Horror Review, which you can find on any of your podcatchers throughout the World Wide Web. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and I guess it's called X now.
Yeah.
But thanks to Elion. But yeah, we're on all those. We just finished up our 116th episode of that, which was a lot of fun to do. But we continue to do a weekly podcast talking about horror movies specifically. And Heidelberg, Jacqueline, and I love those guys, but we love you as well. Love being on Circle of Jerks.
Yeah, man. We enjoyed our collaboration with you guys last year when we came on for prom night. And the last episode I was on, Andy couldn't join we had a scheduling change, so Andy couldn't join. But we did the bad seat as well. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
great episode. I wasn't a part of that as well, but man, that was a lot of fun to listen to. But having you guys on for the prom night episode,
God, I still listen to that. It was fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was.
But so we're gonna be talking about this film that I really love from 1960, Peeping Tom. Why I chose the film? Well, it is the grandfather of the slasher film, and of course, John, we know that you love Halloween.
Yes.
And if I remember correctly, you're the fan of the Rob Zombie version.
Heresy, I say.
Fake news. No, I'm not a fan of that. But yes, you're absolutely right, Rob. My favorite, I'd actually say my favorite movie of all time, not just horror movies, is Halloween from 1978. So yes, I saw a lot of influence in this movie that John Carpenter took. We know the story behind how Halloween got made, with the from Black Christmas 1974, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, I did see a lot of influence on that. And I'll tell you, Rob, I've never seen this movie. I heard about it. To me, it almost seemed like a I don't know, maybe a Alfred Hitchcock type influence. However,
yeah, we're going to talk about that too.
Okay, all right, I'll stop. But yes.
No. Finish your thought. I want to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, it was just this. It felt like one of the first found footage movies. Where it was like POV and the look of the movie was fantastic. I've got a little bit to say about the score, but it was it just felt I guess if you're a horror movie fan, I would say this is horror movie adjacent, but a descent into madness, kind of a more of a suspense. It felt very 60s, but it was also very innovative. Watching it,
Yeah.
I would say that's a better classification too. Now, it's not necessarily like horror, but yeah, it's definitely more suspense and like and psychological like drama even.
And I guess what I know about 60s movies is that nudity was not a big thing, but man, this showed a lot of nudity, even though it was pictures,
Right.
and there was actually one nude scene in this movie.
Oh yeah.
It just I think it really was ahead of its time. So
this film shocked the world. I'll just say that.
Okay.
I'll talk a little bit about the director, Michael Powell, and the reason this guy, his films are always shot very beautifully. Most of you guys are probably not gonna have heard of any of these films, but I'm gonna run down like his most famous films that. Let's see. There is the Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. I have actually never seen that. There's a Criterion version of that I'm going to get.
Is it? Did you say Colonel Blimp?
Yes. I've heard it's actually a really good film. I've never seen it personally. There is A Matter of Life and Death. The Red Shoes. Actually, one of the murder victims was the star of that film. Which is kind of an inspiration for Black Swan, I believe. There was some, and then probably his most famous film is Black Narcissus, which John, you might, if you've seen the documentary on Shudder, the 101 Scariest Film Moments of All Time. There is a moment that they Black Narcissus is in that 101 Scariest Moments. So that actually. Made me want to watch that film, and it's not a horror film, but like that moment that they show is very like unsettling and scary. But yeah, so that's and all these are not in this film. He didn't have like his normal cinematographer or his other like screenwriter that he worked with. And Jack Cardiff was one of the guys that usually works with him. Like was this very special Technicolor camera operator, and would just give these great shots. And one of his screenwriters was Emmerich Pressburger, who he worked a lot with these films. But neither of these guys were involved with this one. This was a Michael Powell, he was kind of solo on this one, or didn't use the same guys he normally used.
Was that more of a passion project for him then?
I think so. Like I'm not sure if this is something like he was wanting when he heard this film. Is like he was like, yeah, that sounds. Let's make this happen. This sounds like a really interesting picture. And you were talking about Hitchcock. Is this film comes out? There's 3 films that come out in 1960. Kind of these horror films that kind of shocked the world. This one came out. This is the one that came out first. Peeping Tom was first. Then there's a French film, Eyes Without a Face, which I actually just started to watch. I have not finished it yet, but that's also like kind of a fucked up film. It's a horror film. It's messed up. And that's where there's a lot of cinematic archaeology in there. And then Psycho came out. And Psycho is the one that really just, blew up and like made Alfred Hitchcock into a superstar. But he learned from the mistakes that these other films made in the way that the films were presented to critics and all that stuff. And because Michael Powell went about the normal way, like, oh, we're going to have the press screening, the critics are going to take a look at it, they're going to write their reviews, and then you kind of do that whole gamut. And that was a huge mistake.
Yeah. I've never seen Eyes Without a Face. I've heard great things about it. But the similarities between Eyes Without a Face and Psycho is they were in black and white, and this was done all in color.
Oh, and I like the Technicolor. Like it does have that. You're watching a film that's old, but it still looks beautiful. Like it's almost like everything is kind of like hyper realized. The colors are like it's this. The colors just pop out at you in like this unreal.
Right, they're like super saturated. And so
Yeah.
so everything, so all the colors are like very vibrant and like kind of exaggerated, but in a very beautiful sort of way.
Yeah. Look at the films that are coming out today. They're doing the same thing that this film does.
And Andy, I totally agree with you that it was really oversaturated, but it was beautifully shot. The cinematography was fantastic on this movie. The fact that and I'm sure we're going to reference back to those three movies. And again, I haven't seen Eyes Without a Face, but I'm so familiar with Psycho.
Yeah.
And it's just, for the time, the two movies that I do know, this movie and Psycho, is that, they were ahead of their time, but they also have the same kind of themes of, voyeuristic tendencies of a male, of watching. And, Eyes Without a Face, again, I can't reference back to because I've never seen, but, these two films felt very similar.
Yeah.
In my opinion, one did a little more successful than the other, but yeah, I mean, this movie is worth a watch. This movie, you definitely have to watch and get something out of it and get some enjoyment out of it for sure.
Yeah, well, Andy, why don't we drop the synopsis and the spoiler warning, and then we'll kind of talk about the film, and I'll drop in my notes as we go.
All right. Okay, here's the synopsis for Peeping Tom. Here's the mouse. Loner Mark Lewis works at a film studio during the day, and at night he takes racy photographs of women. Also, he's making a documentary on fear, which involves recording the reactions of victims as he murders them. He befriends Helen, the daughter of the family living in the apartment below his, and he tells her vaguely about the movie he's making. She sneaks into Mark's apartment to watch it and is horrified by what she sees, especially when Mark catches her.
Yeah, this film is. I think the connective tissue between the films that we're talking about, like, it's a sympathetic killer, because you do feel bad for like kind of the plight that they're in. I would say like more so in this film than the other ones, because our main character is the actor's name is Karl-Heinz Bohm. He's the son of a famous composer, Karl Bohm, who had a terrible relationship with his famous father. Was kind of not like physically abused, but kind of emotionally, like, was kind of essentially not abandoned but neglected. And so this actor resonated with the character a lot. And what we find out in this film is that he is, well, because it opens up with him killing someone, and I'm sure that this is not his first victim. This is I think there's probably a long string of kills that he's had before we open up with the film, and we don't see who it is first. All we see is the camera view of him coming in. Like, he hires the prostitute.
It's the POV.
Yeah, which is like, which we see this in a lot of slasher films, that POV shot. We're not sure who the killer is. And the other thing too, like, because the way that because we're looking through the camera, it has like that crosshairs, and you're looking at like because he's this unassuming. What we find out is he's this unassuming kind of like non-scary guy. He's good looking. He doesn't have some like weird scar or fucked up face or anything. Yeah, so like he's unimposing. And like everyone, so their defenses are, oh yeah, of course, let's go to this hotel room, and then like, oh yeah, and he's secretly like filming this thing because he has, what we find out, he has the camera kind of like tucked in his under his armpit, and it's like once like it's too late, like there's nothing that they can do about it. Like, he's coming in for the kill, and you just see the look of terror on their face. And it's just like this imposing doom that's coming upon them. And man, it kind of fucked up.
I love the POV shot. It was very innovative, I'm sure, for that time. And obviously Bob Clark who directed Black Christmas in 1974, took some inspiration from this, and you don't realize what's going on, but your mind kind of goes back to, how is this realistic? Because obviously he's got a tripod, and that's where the blade is on,
Right.
and it was just it felt kind of unrealistic to me once you find out later. The shot was beautifully done, and I love the fact that anything that he films or anything that he shows is all in black and white. But once you go to real life, that it's all in color. And like you said, Rob, I mean, I think it's beautifully done with the Technicolor. But it's like a nice little chef's kiss that any film that he has is the older camera, probably from the 20s. When they first came up with film,
Yeah.
the 8mm or whatever it was,
Right.
and showing that was really nicely done. The transition from watching the movie of what he filmed and seeing it in real time in color was nicely done, and I love that about the movie.
Interestingly, that kind of reminded me of that movie we did. I don't know if it was with you, John, but no, it was with Heidelberg, but Lucas.
Okay.
Because it's this the story of the serial killer, and then like they filmed their crimes, and they would go back and watch them again.
Oh, you're talking about Henry Portrait.
Henry. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Henry.
Yeah.
Henry Portrait.
Well, the real guy was Henry Lee Lucas. Yeah, we did that with John.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But and then watching this movie, it's like it kind of reminded me of that one. Like that's probably maybe where they got that idea. Or
Similarly, I can never say that word. Similarly controversial film that was pretty much lauded by the critics, but it is a great classic.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, because obviously we there's no sound in because he's essentially like replaying his trope, and there's no sound, it's in black and white.
There's no audio. Yeah, it's not like he was filming and recording sound.
Yeah.
Especially given the limitations of the technology of that era.
And the way they had to kind of produce the film and kind of treat it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no way he could have sent that film out to be developed, a third party lab.
No.
So.
But yeah, so he now this was the guy that we have that plays Mark Lewis. He's he's an Austrian-born actor. He was not the first choice. There was two other guys that Michael Powell wanted. One couldn't do it because he ended up there was a film that he had done that kind of made him more famous, and so he didn't have the time to do this film. And then the other guy, I think there was some other contractual obligation that wouldn't allow him and those were English actors that they were trying to get. So they went with this guy who, obviously he definitely has kind of if for fans of Peter Lorre, kind of has a similar accent to Peter Lorre in a lot of ways. But he, so he's obviously has an accent. It's never stated in the actual film, but the way that this actor portrays I'm a refugee from the Nazi era. We emigrated over to England, and there was a lot. So that was kind of their thinking. It's okay, that's fine.
Yeah, secret Nazi.
Yes. And
secret Nazi confirmed.
Yeah.
Exactly. What's silly about that is that this movie was probably filmed in '59, so World War II was 43, so this is 16 years after that, or 17 years.
And so,
crazy.
But most people that were fleeing from that area, they were leaving around the mid 30s. Because a film I just finished talking about that will be coming up on Cinemigos, M, the director the director Fritz Lang and Peter Lorre fled Germany pretty much right before the Nazis took power. And so that would have been 35 35 or 36 that a lot of people ended up like they saw the winds changing and they're like, we're getting the fuck out of Dodge.
Yeah.
So we're looking at maybe like 36. He's probably a young kid. And they fled, him and his dad and his family fled to England around like 36. So it would make sense because this guy is in his like late 20s, early 30s when this takes place. So like I said, not specifically stated in the film, but it's kind of it's like, hey, this is why we have a kind of German accented guy living in England.
In Great Britain. Okay. I did not like some of the accents. It felt forced or fake at some points. It felt like they brought in some American actors or extras that just felt kind of like it didn't feel genuine.
So,
Our character of Mark, you obviously heard like a German or, Eastern European type accent, not British.
Well, and they leaned into that. He wasn't trying to do a British accent. That's how he actually spoke. Because I think this is one of his one of the first like English speaking roles he had done for film. Because he was a pretty famous Austrian actor. Did a lot of foreign films. I want to say that this is his first like English speaking role. I mean, he knew English, but obviously like this is one of his first ones that he had done. All the other actors, they're all English. They're all. This is a British production. Like this is none of this was. They didn't bring in any English actor or American actors, anything like that. So their accents are all weird because they're weird.
No, and I think it was the police chief that says schedule, and I get that. That's the British dialect.
King's English.
But then he says like Mimo. I'm like,
yeah, okay,
Mimo.
Like,
he says it twice. And
for memo, yeah.
He says Mimo. Oh, send it Mimo, and I'm like,
it's weird. And that could also be like kind of an antiquated way to say it in like kind of in Britain at that time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or
makes sense.
Well, it's also corporate like office speak, and so maybe that hadn't permeated like the mainstream culture. So they're not just used to seeing that word or hearing that word.
And I also wonder too, maybe because memo is isn't it like
it's short for memorandum.
Memorandum. Oh, okay. Well, I was saying it was like mimeograph too. Like maybe that's why he was saying it was a memo.
Oh.
Which I don't know, but it could be. But yeah,
that gal did have a pad of paper, so she was taking a memo.
Yeah.
Well, they also spell color the wrong way.
I know what they U. I know them and the French Canadians.
There was no U in color.
Yeah.
I know color. Yes. Say it right, Frenchie.
So.
All right, I think we just lost a bunch of viewers from Great Britain. Sorry, guys.
This is our Boston Tea Party. This is our rebellion.
This is our don't tread on me moment.
So we have Mark. We see him kill his first victim. It's like, oh man, this is kind of fucked up. And we see the look of horror on her face. We don't actually see her get slashed to death, but we see that because we see all the police activity afterwards. We see Mark videotaping filming the police activity, and then we get back to where he lives, and he's peeping through the window, and there's this birthday party that's going on with one of our main actresses, played by Anna Massey, who is Helen Stevens. So the one thing that most of the films and stuff that she did was over in England. The one, I think, film that I think people know her from here, which is a Hitchcock film I have not seen yet, but I do own, is Frenzy, which was his penultimate film. And she, like I said, she's done a whole bunch of stuff over in England. was pretty young at this time too, because this is 1959, 1960. So she was like in her like 20s or like late 20s, I think. What did you think about Helen Stevens as a character?
I kind of liked her. However, I was looking at the attractiveness between the mom and the daughter, and I thought the mom was much more beautiful than she was because she and we did it. We just did a movie, A Pearl, with Mia Goth, and Mia Goth has got this unique look. However, she's got these acting chops. I just felt the mom was a better character. The character of Helen was. It was okay. I mean, but it just felt like a little overacted for me. Where the mom was, it felt more natural.
Right. Yeah. I mean, for me, the mother was such a more compelling character. I mean, with the blindness and everything, it like the way she confronted him. It just that was the most interesting part of the movie for me.
So I have a theory as to why like Helen seems like a little, because the way that in this film she had just turned 21, so she's very young.
Sure.
And so she's also very naive as well. Whereas like her mother that actress that played her mom, Mrs. Stevens, is Maxine Audley. Andy, she was in the original Dunkirk, which we just reviewed not that long ago. Apparently, I forget what part she played in that film, but I think she was one of the wives in that film.
Maybe she was what's his face's was it Richard Attenborough's character's wife?
That's the one. That's that version of Dunkirk.
No, but I'm saying like maybe if I'm remembering correctly, I think maybe she might have been Richard Attenborough's character's wife. The one that the one that couldn't like stand to put their baby in like the baby gas mask.
I think you might be right. Yeah, I think you might be right because
if I'm remembering correctly.
Came out. That came out the year before this, so it's very. Yeah, I think you're right. The other John, I don't know if you've watched a lot of Hammer horror films. She's also in Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's one thing that I've kind of missed Hammer horror, but. I just, as far as her character in this movie, I was really drawn to her because, she's
a great character. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's an alcoholic, blind, obviously like she had lost her sight and that really caused her, her character arc was really good in this movie. Her daughter, Helen, just seemed like I don't know, like.
She's a young, dumb teen, which is.
I mean, she's got aspirations, which was a good character, but I mean, again, the mom just to me, I was drawn to her.
Yeah, I thought just like her, just like kind of like the almost, you're trying to piece together like her tragic background, like was her drinking like the cause of her blindness? Because like maybe in one of her a drunken bender, she accidentally grabbed like rubbing alcohol or something and downed it, and which caused her blindness or whatever.
Yeah, and I agree, Andy. I mean, you don't know, but I just felt like she had a tragedy, and that's what caused it. I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead.
Oh no, so they very shortly allude to what actually happened to her, because there's that confrontation between Mark and Mrs. Stevens, in his dark room.
Yeah. And
essentially, had she was getting an operation. But she did not trust her gut that the person that was operating on her, she didn't feel that he was. Her gut says this guy doesn't know what he's doing, and that's why she ended up being blind. Is because the operation went bad. She lost her eyesight, and I assume that's why she drinks now, because well, just stuck here. I'm blind. What else? I can't do anything.
Well, she never moves from the couch until later in the movie.
Right.
I mean,
again, the conversation of Mark. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got that Johnny Walker that she's just dumping into a glass constantly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, she's a tragic figure in her own way, and I also put a note too. Is the only one who actually sees Mark for who he is Mrs. Stevens, and she's blind.
Yeah, ironically, the blind woman.
Well, and you don't. I mean, you get the vibe of that, but you don't get it until actually where she gets the vibe that he's looking through the window again for a second time.
Right.
Yeah.
Later in the movie, that you actually get confirmation that she is blind, and it's just like, oh, he's here or he's watching, and he runs off because Helen looks, and it's like, oh yeah, there he is.
Why do you think that with Helen's character, why do you think that she's interested in Mark?
I don't know the times and I don't know Great Britain, but it just seems like it was this kind of maybe old school mentality of a gentleman caller. The neighbor guy is really interested in her, and he allegedly is successful, but she's intrigued by the mystery of Mark. He's got some creativity. He's mysterious. She doesn't know a lot about him. It's a very awkward interaction when she brings up the cake and he offers her milk. And it's just like, this guy's intriguing to me. The excitement of what's going on. He's mysterious. Maybe dangerous, but she kind of likes that. Maybe
she's the bad boy. He's the bad boy. That.
Yeah, that's the vibe. That's the vibe I got.
John, I think I agree with you in your assessment because if you think about it, Mark is very mysterious. He's quiet. He keeps himself. He doesn't engage, in like social pleasantries, like small talk. He just kind of like, as soon as he gets home, he like quickly shuffles up into his room, without even engaging. I mean, what we find out to be are his tenants.
Yeah, to watch his murders. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, the other thing too, I also wonder, like, because when Helen meets him for the first time, that's when he shows her like the videos of like his childhood, like his home movies, like that his dad took of him. Because what we find out is that he has constantly been like filmed his entire life, because his dad was working on a study. Who it turns out his dad was like some sort of sociologist or some sort of scientist,
researcher or something like that.
Yeah, researching fear and like what it does to the nervous system, and so his son was his experiment.
Again, secret not confirmed.
Yeah, which so when we see that the home movie footage, it was the people who played Mark Lewis's dad and the son. That was the dad was the director of the film. That was Michael Powell. And that was also Michael Powell's son, who was playing the young Mark Lewis in there. But yeah, like I'm still trying to figure out. Like, I know that Helen was kind of pushing him to see, like, oh, what type of films are you making? Like, what can you show me something? And I don't know if this is where this is the weird part of the film is like I'm wondering like what is Mark thinking. Like, does he want someone to like understand who he is? And so he's showing, this girl is showing some sort of curiosity about me. Let me show her my trauma that I have on film and that I've kind of cut together, and let me see how she reacts. Do you think that's kind of like what's going on there, Andy?
Not necessarily, no. I think this is the one part that kind of gets me puzzled about this movie, in that, like, I'm not exactly sure what his motivation. I mean, other than what he states outright, and that he's interested in fear and he's kind of like continuing on the work of his father, but other than that, I don't really understand like what makes him tick, or it's very hard to place like what exactly is motivating him to pursue this relationship with Helen. I mean, I understand like I understand the killing. The killing is pretty straightforward. but like why he's choosing to engage and seek a relationship with Helen. That's the real, you know.
Well, I think Helen's pursuing something with him. That's the other thing too. Like, and which is why I think there's some sort of interest that he has in her as well, because he finds her interesting, and that's why I think he's showing those home movies to her to see, like, to gauge her reaction. Is she going to recoil in horror? Is she going to show some sympathy to me that no one else has shown to him in his entire life? You know, that's the mystery. Like, because he is, which is I think one of the problems that the critics had with this film is, like, we are starting to feel some sort of sympathy towards Mark Lewis.
Right,
and it's the same Psycho. You know, you feel the same for Norman Bates. You know, that he was abused as a kid, and you know, and Mark is going through the same thing. However, you see it, you know, in these films where the dad's shining the light in his eyes to get fear out of him, or putting a lizard on his bed,
or film like his
his
mom is dying, and like gauging like how sad he is, and it's
right, yeah, because in Psycho we're only kind of told of how overbearing and abusive, you know, Norma Bates was, but in this movie we actually kind of see the dad, you know, being abusive towards his son.
Right. You know, and not necessarily physically abuse. Well, I guess physically, because he is putting him through torture, you know, of seeing his reaction to fear. And it's just like in Psycho, and again, the comparison is, you know, you hear the mother's voice constantly. However, you're seeing this, you know, and Helen is so shocked by the lizard part of, like, you know, why would he do that to you? Why would he put it in your bed? And at the end of the movie, not to jump ahead, but she's like, show me everything, or show me it, you know, what's going on.
Yeah,
she is intrigued.
Yeah, that's why that was why I was so curious, because Helen does show an interest in, like, and she is horrified about what's happened to him, and it's like, this is, but she's not like she doesn't like run away from him. She's like almost like, how terrible that this has happened to you. Like, you need. It's almost like she wanted to be a positive presence in his life for some reason.
She's sympathizing with him. I mean, she's not.
Yeah.
I don't think she. You know, I don't know. Yeah, she wasn't empathizing with her, but she was definitely sympathizing with him, and that's probably the first time anyone has ever done that for him. You know, where it's like, oh, what a terrible thing that happened to you. You know, it's like not that she understands what he was feeling, but she's relaying concern that, you know, these monstrous or torturous things happen to him. And, you know, I'm pretty sure like his dad being like this well-known researcher, psychologist, whatever, like, all of, like, when he would tell it, like when he would tell his colleagues about this research, they'd all probably be like, oh, that's interesting, and like kind of like, you know, stroke their beards or, you know, puff on their pipes.
Yeah. But yeah, I found that, like, their interaction together is really interesting, because I think had Helen met Mark years earlier, I think Mark could have been saved. Like, I think he could have, like, been possibly, because there is a moment in this film, like, where they end up having this really nice date, and she essentially, like, I've never seen you without your camera. Like, would you trust me to, like, you know, put it away, and we'll just be together? And he does it, because that's his weapon. That's his crutch. That's what he uses as kind of like, because he's always hiding behind this device. And so he finally was able to actually interact with a female in a proper way.
Well, I mean, just
I do semi-agree with that, because there is a woman at the beginning of the movie where she's got like a scar on her lip.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that.
And you know, he really is all about the camera. You know, even the stand-in woman that he ends up murdering is, You know, it's all about the camera and the camera shots and the lights. But yeah, I think there is some sense of humanity. However, you know, he just doesn't give a vibe of humanity. He actually just gives the vibe that he is a psychopath throughout the movie, but he can put it on pause for just a little bit. You know, and I thought Helen at the beginning of the movie, there was a really good scene as she's getting ready to leave, and the neighbor guy that's really, I guess, has a crush on her and pulling her away from Mark. That it's just, you know, she's got like googly eyes for him. It's just like, okay, well, I hope to see you later, you know, downstairs, because like the neighbor guy, who's not a total jerk in the movie, but it's just like he's pulling her away, just say, hey, pay attention to me, you know.
Yeah, and what we find out too is, like, you know, this is the house that Mark grew up in, and he rents out a lot of this giant house. It looks like an apartment building, but like it's this giant mansion that he essentially owns, because that was what his dad had. But he rents out the rooms for, and it's apparent the rent is super cheap apparently. So because there's like a shared bathroom, there's like no real like locks on the doors or something. What we find out too is like the whole house is wired for sound. Yeah,
that's
so like everyone's being recorded. Yeah. It's like, but I guess if the rent is cheap enough, why not? You know, I guess I'll be recorded for for cheap rent.
Yeah, but really quickly about like the whole him, like, you know, hiding behind the camera, being a trained photographer. There is something about that. There is something about, you know, kind of like the boundary, as it were, like where like the photographer behind the camera, like they have to be cut off from the subject matter, so you know that they can create art, and you know, in not so many words. So I think for Mark, it's definitely a element of control. And I think Helen is like the first like real life, one of the first things that's been able to breach that barrier, and you know, and has given the Mark the opportunity to relinquish some of that control.
Yeah, I mean, don't you guys feel like, you know, he lives behind the camera? Like his real life is actually, you know, being behind the camera and being a completely different person. That you know, he can be his real self behind the camera, and once it gets in front of it, because there's a discomfort when he's, you know, he's not looking into a camera. You know, it's just like, that's the whole movie, is that he just feels like he's so awkward. You know, and maybe it's a product of what his father did to him, you know, of being voyeuristic and seeing what fear he had. But, you know, that's the way his brain is trained. His soul is just, I got to be behind the camera, which is why he's so comfortable with killing while the camera is rolling.
Right. Yeah. Because like every single time that something bad has happened to him, like that's been done to his father, you know, his dad had the camera with him all the time. And so when, you know, when these bad things were happening to him, he never saw his father's face. He just saw, you know, the unblinking eye of the camera.
Yeah, and one of the first presents that his dad gave him was a camera. So it was like filming on filming, and it was just like, okay, I got to stay behind this for my comfort zone.
Well, let's talk about the Mark Lewis, we find out there's a couple things that he does. He's a focus puller for film and TV production. But he's on the side. He is a pornographer. So it's and so there's
as one is led to do sometimes.
Yeah, which, you know, it's funny because there's some another slasher recent classic in X, you know, which is it's essentially, you know, Boogie Nights meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So we kind of get like those vibes as well. But yeah, that store that he works in, that is one of the weirdest things. Like, oh, we sell newspapers and candy bars to kids, and oh yeah, we film porno up in the the top floor, and we sell naked lady photos to like gentlemen. Like, you know, it's.
After the second time watching that, I didn't realize how brilliant that scene was, because this guy is so prim and proper, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Like,
no,
they're
good.
very proper British gentlemen. Oh yes, I'll take the Times and I'll take this. And I heard that you had something else, and this guy's flipping through it. Hey, yeah, I'll take that one. I'll take. How about for the whole thing? I'll take the whole thing.
Right.
You know, and it was just like and the juxtaposition of the little girl coming in and getting her
Candy bar
candy.
afterwards.
Yeah, I
It
know.
was fantastic. I mean, again, I didn't appreciate the first time I watched it, but the second time I was like,
It's
that
great.
was funny. That was very
That was
funny.
funny.
And
That was
just sitting
hilarious.
there- yeah, Mark is just sitting there, just kind of like, I mean, maybe muttering under his breath is like, this guy is a freaking, this guy's a creep.
Yeah, this guy's a degenerate.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, and then the next scene is that him taking pictures of the woman, and the woman with the scar on her face. It was at that point I was like, oh wait, are they going to show nudity in a '60s movie? But we don't get that until later, and it was just like, wow. I mean, it was very provocative, I'm sure, of that time, because they had pictures plastered on the door and throughout the store that you see these nude women, and you're like, wow, that's a little ahead of its time.
Yeah, really, it really is. I was actually, when I first watched it, I was like, damn, I didn't know they were going to go that direction with this. And because this is a very, like, this is not really a graphic movie, violence wise. Like,
it's not gratuitous, not at all.
No.
The scene of the nude woman, the blonde woman, I forgot her name, but it was very brief. But you just go, wait, hold on, did I see boobs in this movie? And I'm like, yeah, you just saw that, like, on film.
Now I know that hurt your eyes, John, but sorry, we had.
Dude, like, my 13-year-old John would have loved this, but it's just like, but it was actually filmed very well.
Yeah,
right. It wasn't gratuitous or nothing.
It really wasn't gratuitous, and like for me, it was just like a very quick, and I'm like, wow, it was shocking to me. I was just like, whoa, did I just see that? Because you don't see Janet Leigh nude in Psycho.
Right.
Nope.
But you actually see this woman, the blonde woman, again, I forgot her character's name, but you saw her nude in this movie, and it was just like, wow, in a 60s movie, maybe a Russ Meyer movie would show that, but I mean, of the time, it seems like, maybe critics would be like, this is so shocking, don't watch this movie.
Yeah, well, especially it's definitely shocking compared to his past projects too, because he never there's never a thing that goes in quite in that direction. Now there is like a sexual tension in some of his films, like Black Narcissus especially, but there's no nudity at all. Like there's nothing like that. And so this is especially if you're a fan of Michael Powell's and you're watching his filmography and seeing this film, which is one of his last films that he ever did, it is really shocking. It's like, damn, this is not what I was expecting at all. And like I said, the whole idea of like that store where this salacious material is being filmed and everything.
Yeah.
That's also I think that's also something that kind of chapped the hides of the critics too, because it is exposing the lens of like, oh, we're from England, we're prim and proper, we don't deal with this nudity. It's like it's like, but no, they're not above that. Like this is a normal guy thing to happen. Like guys are gonna want to look at naked ladies.
Sure.
And they're, even if they have to, I mean, you have to go out to the woods to get your Hansel and Gretel like porn or whatever that.
Which by the way, isn't that the weirdest thing? You would find porn out in the woods, like a box of it, and then you just put it back out there. That's weird.
It's funny because I remember a photo instructor I had way back when. He had a I don't know if it was a thesis or not, but he was talking about how well like old pornography was preserved as opposed to like other types of photographic media. It's because it was like so taboo and so salacious, and like it's like it wasn't like the normal thing to just have laying around, and so like people would hide it in like crawl spaces or under their floorboards or whatever, and then or like in or
And
newspapers.
you know what's nice about today? If you look at my search history, you'll see Pornhub on there, and it's like I have no shame in that. I'm not going to go throw my phone out in the woods,
Right.
but I mean, if you want to look at my search history, it's right there.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of I found that like really funny, just that it's showing a lens on I don't think that people, especially in England, were like willing to deal with, but it was a reality that was happening at the time. So
And that's right. And again, to your point, Rob, it was because the windows were like tinted out or had all these pictures over it. It was almost like, yeah, it was almost like a you know dark web type thing.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, exactly.
Oh right, yeah, because
No,
they were because like what the little girls like perusing like the little teeny bopper magazines, and like the adults were like talking out like in code, talking about like it's like, oh, I'll take this nice whatever British slang term, and then like but it's like it's
Sure.
all code, and and they're like
Yeah.
able to just conduct their business right out in the open.
And the juxtaposition of that was, is like this guy's like coming in for a newspaper. However, he knew exactly why he was coming in. And then you've got this preteen girl coming in just for candy for later in the day. Hey, can I have this? Okay, here's your 2 quints or whatever it was. And it was like,
Yeah, here's your Mars bar, honey.
it was like to me, that scene was fantastic because it was just like, you have Mark in there, you have the store owner, you have this like creepy guy, and then you get this little girl that comes in just for candy.
What a time to be alive, John.
I know.
Oh my god! It was just like that whole scene it just had so much going on to it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of fun. I laughed.
Yeah.
Like I seriously laughed out loud.
Yeah, it's funny. And like because we also because Mark had just been done filming like upstairs, taking pictures, some film. And,
this is previous to when he went up.
Yeah, this is just before.
Is that just okay?
Yeah, the store owner comes up with some tea. He's like on the house, and like the girl laying on the bed is like okay, and then Mark gets really enthralled with the woman with the scar on her face, and it's just like
because I think that he has some sort of vibe with her because he's a scarred individual on the inside. Sure. No one sees his scars. Her scars are on the outside, and he's fascinated by that. And it's like, if I was going to say Mark is going to kill, it's not going to be that woman.
No.
So yeah, we have that, and then we also go to we have that. We have the first interaction with Helen, and then we go to see Mark at work as the focus puller at this. And my God, like that, if that's not a true representation of what happens on a film set, like I don't know of a better one.
Yeah, I wouldn't know, but I mean that was actually a very humorous scene. It's just like this pretentious actress that can't faint correctly.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me in Blowout where they're filming this like horror film and the woman doesn't scream right, and so they're trying to find the right sound of a woman who can scream properly for this film because she's always like the woman in that film in Blowout, she's like ow, like, well, what the fuck is this? That's not how like someone screaming would sound.
Well, and I love the fact that they kind of played on that because I guess in most movies you would look at this and just call it fluff because it doesn't give really any character arc because you could have cut this out of the movie. But to me, I had so much fun with it because later in the movie, it was like the director was giving her direction of like, okay, so you're asking for the white box
over your white trunk,
red box. Do you have something in blue? Because obviously she's a klepto and she wants to steal stuff. Let's play some humor into this, and I love that. But this whole scene was actually really good to me because it was like I laughed, and it gives a little character arc to Mark of he's just there to do a job. He's maybe a DP or something like that.
Or camera operator.
Yeah, something like that. He's just there to film it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that the way the director was like so over the top was fantastic. I actually enjoyed that.
And it's like, and then you have like the production company is like, if the take is good, if you get what you need, it's a take. Like we don't need to do like 50 takes of this, and like which is what they end up doing. So
yeah, it was like 100 takes or something like that of her fainting.
Right. Yeah. Like fainting with her eyes open, fainting with just like laughing as she's going down.
It's like, oh man, it's just like, and it's funny because so she is like the main actress, and then what we meet her stand-in, who's kind of like her backup. Like if like let's say this person fails,
or just someone to like stand in while they like get like calibrate the lighting and like the setting of the camera.
Yeah. So you have so that actress is Moira Shearer, who plays Vivian, and she looks fantastic, by the way. The one thing that that most people will know her is she was in another one of Powell's big films, The Red Shoes. She was one of the main stars of that, like which most people haven't watched. It's a movie about ballet, which is why she dances so well. She actually was a dancer.
That was a great scene.
Yeah, that really was. Like her warm ups.
Yeah, the beatnik like.
Yeah.
There's a lot of redheads in this movie, by the way.
Yeah.
And it kind of
and I'm all about it. I'm all about it.
Andy's a redhead fiend.
I am.
He likes those women without souls.
Yes.
But it was kind of weird of that, I could do a better fainting scene than that actress.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube, so you saw that.
Right.
But yeah, obviously, like, so most of like the trailers that were put out about this film, or like kind of the iconic scenes of the film, really is like centered around Vivian. She's the most famous kill of the film, and they do see like I don't know if you watched the actual theatrical trailer for Peeping Tom, but it's like they do center around Vivian quite a bit. And it has that the sound, that music that she's dancing to in the scene where she's doing the secret filming with Mark.
Yeah.
That's they play that song throughout the trailer. So that's
I can understand why that would be the most famous, but like for me, it was the very first kill. Like the one that stuck out to me the most was that one.
Well, I was actually surprised at how she was just like kind of a stand-in for the studio, but in terms of like hierarchy, like that was like probably like the most high-profile kill he's gotten.
Well, and I agree with that, but I just think that the first kill of the movie, of the prostitute, where he's following her up, and like the POV shot to me stuck out the most. I thought about that a lot, and I'm just like, that was really fucking disturbing. But I gotta say, Rob and Andy, it's like the score to this just didn't fit. No. It was like with what Hitchcock did with Psycho. It really, the score just, it's iconic. But this to me was just almost silly, cartoony a little bit.
Yeah, that's the one thing. The secret for Hitchcock is that he had Bernard Herrmann.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the big secret there. I don't know who the composer was for this film, but yeah, it is kind of like of that. We're moving into the 60s, kind of that, like it had this like weird like beatnik type of soundtrack that just doesn't match up with like what you would expect for a horror film.
Yeah, there were some beats in the soundtrack itself that were disturbing, but then it kind of goes like, let's do a little say,
right, and they kind of like they perk it up a bit.
Yeah, and it's like there were some parts of that soundtrack that were okay, that's disturbing, but then it goes silly.
Yeah, I think a different score would really have elevated the film just a bit. Because I would say you don't necessarily have to have a gratuitous graphic film, like because there's a lot of films that I watch where like a lot of the deaths happen off the screen, like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. Like there's very little like killing that we actually see. All of it kind of happens off screen, but it's so imposing and like
Right. You're talking about Henry. I mean, that had a very disturbing score. You know, it was like
Yeah.
the piano, bom, bom, you know, just this big crescendo of like in your face. You just feel like, oh my God. And you can feel it in your stomach where you're like, ooh,
Yeah,
this
it's very
is
visceral. It was very visceral.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where like I think that this film does suffer because the soundtrack does not match up. It doesn't match the tension that you're supposed to be feeling in the moment.
Right. And that's a problem I had with the movie. I mean, it just feels like it. Psycho did it better. And I'm not going to do the comparisons of black and white to color, but I mean, it's just like if you're comparing scores, it's like Psycho will like chop your nuts off. This one will like make your nuts like grow hair. I don't know.
But yeah, I do like Vivian's death. I think that's kind of like how he is just luring. I mean, he is a spider luring the fly into the trap, and it's like he's just, you know, she doesn't even realize how like she is getting into that spider web, and like when she realizes that it's like that whole scene, like that dialogue between them, it's like, well, I don't know how to act scared. It's like, imagine a madman coming after you. It's like, but you don't like, and he knows it, but you don't. And it's like that's when like he, you know, kind of unveils that like he's gonna kill her,
Right?
And that is the man, that is so scary. But yeah, but the soundtrack doesn't match. But the kill itself and the idea behind it, I thought was like super cool.
Yeah, I thought the shot was beautifully done. You know, again, it was like that last split second where she realizes what he's doing. You know, even when he pulls out the blade, she's just like, you know, kind of like pooping it. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh shit, he's really doing this. And it's that split second. You don't have to show the gore, you don't have to show the kill, but you show that reaction, you know, that close up to the face. It was like, okay, that's well done right there. But like you said, Rob, I mean, the score doesn't match up to this. You know, you could have this fun type, and they're having fun. She's doing her dance. She's warming up, whatever she's doing. And then all of a sudden bring it down or do like some sort of sharp
some transition to let them know like, oh, shit's about to go down.
Even if it is that split second where she actually gets killed. You know, because then all of a sudden, you know, you go to the next day and there's the blue case and she's in there. You know, because freaking Mark's looking at this and going, oh, don't take that. And then something weird happens is that Mark pulls out his camera. He wants to see the reaction of it.
I think he did that on purpose because when we saw him kill the girl at the beginning, the prostitute, he was there watching all the activity. He wanted to see the reaction to this, to like what he had done. And so I think that like now here on this film set, no one really knows that it's him that had done it. I mean, they'll come to find that out afterwards. But he wanted that spectacle. He wanted to not only he filmed Vivian's fear of her being killed, like watching herself being killed, but then you have the fear of people discovering the body, and he wanted to get that on camera. So I think that was done totally on purpose.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. And I do love the scene where the actress of the movie within the movie.
Faints for real.
I love the fact that she actually fainted. She's like, oh, no, don't faint now. She fainted.
It was a nice payoff for that.
Yeah, it was totally.
So we have that happen, and then obviously we get the investigation that starts with that. I think we go back to the house, and this is kind of like where we meet Mrs. Stevens for the first time as well, right? The blind woman, Helen's
Yeah,
mom.
you get more of a character of her.
Yeah,
It gets
because this is
more-
like where she starts to like. There's something off about this guy.
Mm.
You know, like her sixth sense, like her daredevil sense. You know, she's.
Good.
Oh, he's not. You know, he's not. He's lurking. He's very calculated in the way he steps. He's not just like being.
He's
not
quiet,
being
but
quiet.
it's loud. Yeah, like she mentions, like he's very quiet, but it's very loud of the way he steps.
Yeah, and so she doesn't like his who he is, and obviously Helen just is not even paying attention to that. She knows that like she heard that Mark come in, like all she can think of is like, oh, I want to go see him, and she's like, is it all right if I go see him, Mom? It's like, oh, very well, and she's like, I should. She you know, pours another belt of scotch. And it's like, oh my god.
That was actually very funny because like she says, well, you know, by the time you get back, I won't have finished this. And as soon as she leaves, she goes, gulp, done.
Yeah, it's like, and she poured another one. Yep. It's like, oh, see, I technically I didn't finish it. Oh man, that was, and so this is like where Helen and Mark, they end up kind of, she wants to talk to him about like the book that she's working on, and like, hey, I was thinking about like, could you take some of the photos or whatever for me for this book? I would love to. And so they end up like going out on a date to talk about this book, which is I think she just wanted to go out on a date with him.
Yeah.
And this is where and she gets him to be able to put his camera down, which is the first time we see him without the camera.
Right. Yes.
And he's like,
denoting his like vulnerability.
Yeah, it was. This is where I think, like I said, had they met at a different time, maybe Mark isn't a killer, or like he quits sooner or doesn't, whatever. But the
I'm curious, Andy, and there was this the conversation when they went back up to the apartment, or Helen went to go see Mark. She's talking about the kids' book, and it's like, well, they don't know what the pictures are, and we have to show those pictures because the kids don't know what is being filmed. And it was just like, it was almost an indication to me that it was like Helen was asking him, what are you really doing with these pictures? Or what are you really filming?
Ooh, I did not think of that. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that when I watched the movie.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it was just because she asked him that.
Right.
It's like,
she's very slyly kind of probing, trying to get more information out of him.
That's what I thought. I just thought that she knows that something nefarious was up, and she was just kind of probing him about that, and he got really excited. He got really like giddy about it. It was like, okay, ask me about it. Now I'll do this for you. And that's what led to the date. But I mean, again, it was just like, it just really showed his tendencies of being a psycho, that somebody's very interested in him, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, you're asking me about what I see.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily about a kid's book. It was just like, what do you see when you're behind the camera?
Oh, that's an interesting take on. I never thought of that, because I was thinking because she's so naive and innocent, I would have not thought that she would do something like that. But that actually makes a lot more sense, because that children's book sounded kind of weird. So I was thinking
right, and I think that's the way she presented it to him, is that this is a kid's book, and it's going to be a picture book, but what does the photographer see behind the camera? Let's show those pictures. And it's just like she's probing him of Mark, what are you seeing behind the camera? Why do you hide behind the camera? And when you see it, what's presented to you?
Do you think that she was doing that to try to save him?
Mm-mm. No, I actually think that she was like really interested in him, and she was almost like coming to the dark side with him.
Oh, she was gonna become a psycho like Harley Quinn did the Joker.
Yeah, I think so. I think that she was so enthralled with him that she would go to the ends of the earth.
Well, I mean,
with what?
yeah, I would agree with you that, like, that she'd become like so infatuated with Mark that, like wherever he was, that's where she was gonna go. But I don't think, like, I still think that there is an element of naivete to her character. It's like she doesn't fully grasp like what he is. Again, because I think at this point he's still, to her anyways, he's still presenting as like this aloof, shy, mysterious person that she desperately wants to know more about.
Right.
Yeah.
And I agree with Andy. And Rob, you brought it up. The fact that she's so interested in him, his mysteriousness. I just think that she could be converted, if you will, the dark side. But she's really enthralled with him.
Yeah.
I mean, even that interaction of when she was watching when he was a kid and the dad was like fucking with him big time. She still says, I hope to see you later on tonight. And then you get that cut scene, or well, not cut scene, but you get the scene later of where she's just sitting down and playing cards with her mom. That she's like, the mom goes, "Do you want to go see him?" She's like, "Yeah, I want to go see him."
Yeah, actually, I think there's some legitimacy to your theory there, John, because after the date comes back and it's like, oh, mom's asleep, so like, she goes back to her room, and Mark goes up to the dark room, grabs his camera, goes back up to the dark room, and is working on trying to finish that film of Vivian, and who's in the room but Mrs. Stevens, Helen's mom, and she's like. She knows who he is. Like, she sees him. She can't see, but she sees him, and she's essentially like making a plea to I don't want you near my daughter, because I think she knows like kind of maybe she knows that her daughter is very can be very influenced by the people around her, and he is kind of for whatever reason she has this. Infatuation with Mark, and so very easily, this could have easily been a Peeping Tom 2, Electric Boogaloo. She continued with them. Directed by Rob Zombie, of course.
Of course.
Yes.
You got them both in. Perfect. That's a melange of what we do on Cut Above Horror Review.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's some like really. I think you have some legitimate thoughts concerning that theory that I had not considered.
Isn't the mom a little bit? Isn't she a little bit attracted to this as well? I mean, it doesn't seem like the moms are.
That's also a weird scene too, because like, why don't you show me what's on that film, Mark? Show me what are you watching?
Yeah.
Describe it to me.
Yeah. I mean, she's actually very, I don't want to say turned on, but she's very curious about it. I mean, and not in a bad way. Not that, tell me all the bad things that you do, but I'm actually kind of intrigued by this.
Yeah, and the way that this scene is shot is also just phenomenal, because you have the film of Vivian being killed, but it's playing on their bodies, like the way it's not like you're not,
they're overlapped, so it's almost like the victim is being imprinted like on them.
Right.
Yeah. And Mark goes to to kind of do what he does with her, like to scare her, to see. I think it was to test her fear. I don't know if he was going to kill her or not, or if like knowing that she can't see what's happening to her, it takes away the fun of like what he tries to do. He can't properly capture watching her see herself die. He can't capture that. so he chooses not to do it, and that's when he's just like, this camera will never, Helen will never see this camera.
Right.
You know, it's like, which he's promising that he will never, you know, you don't have to leave, you don't have to do anything. I won't do anything to her, or I'll make that promise.
Well, again, a true sign of a psychopath. You know, he'll say whatever he can to, you know, poo-poo that. You know, and again, like you said, Rob, that great point. I mean, that she cannot see her own death, which is like what really turns him on, or really gets his motor running. That, you know, being voyeuristic of a woman that he is murdering, that she can see her own death. You know, or the fear in her eyes.
Yeah. So Helen's mom is Mark's boner poison.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, Danny.
I have a way with words.
Yeah, that's his Viagra, man.
Yeah.
His Blue Chew.
Yeah. So Helen's mom is his anti-Viagra.
Yeah. By the way, Blue Chew sponsor Circle of Jerks. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll push those. But yeah, let's get into let's take a Mimo and meet our detectives and the investigation into Vivian's death. Because that's like a weird cut into that too, because we just see like these two detectives in the car heading over to the film studio to, you know, investigate the murder, and you know, it's kind of they're just going through a round of like their round of interviews with everyone there. Did you see anything? And man, Mark is like, yes, he is like unimposing. Like he looks like just someone who's very uninteresting. Mm-hmm. But God, he acts so fucking weird in this whole thing.
I thought the detectives were kind of sucked. I mean, it was again, you know, it was like. You know, Mark comes in like filming, and it's like, hey, do you want the film out of this? I want my camera back. You know, it was just like, okay.
They're not even suspecting you, like, bro. Come on.
Yeah. No, I thought even at the end, I'm gonna detectives suck in this. You know what I liked was actually the psychiatrist, or the
the one that they brought in for the traumatized actress.
Yeah, I mean, he's just had this wild and crazy, like receding hairline. It was just sticking out, and he's just like, you know, just staring at like something being filmed, and then, you know, Mark gets up on the lift with them, and he's like, well, let me ask you about this. You know, my father was this person, and it was all about Peeping. Yeah, is that what it was?
Yeah, it's like, oh yes, God, oh yes, I knew your father.
Yes, that was very nice. Your father did very well. Okay, so this is what he did.
He sounded German too.
A little bit, yeah.
I know.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Very cartoony. But it was fun. I mean, it was fun to watch that conversation. But
yeah,
as far as the cops,
got him caught too. Is that stupid conversation?
Yeah, the cops fucking blew. They were terrible.
Their investigation was going nowhere.
No, it wasn't. No, I mean, they did the right thing as far as bringing people in, but it was just, again, that was the fluff of the movie. Maybe that could have got cut out.
Yeah, I could have done without that, and like maybe it was like where someone witnessed him doing a murder, like they saw, like where they saw he was the only one that like they saw go into this thing,
right?
And it turns out the person died in there, and then he was the only one that came out,
right? And that was the whole point of like Studio E or whatever it was, or
right, because it was supposed to be secluded or whatever.
Yeah, and it was just like, well, the only two people that were in the studio were these two people, so it took that long to figure out.
Right.
Well, so I think with the case of Vivian, no one knew that, like, because this was a secret filming thing that they do. No one, she was, because Vivian was hiding. She didn't tell anybody what was going on. She had made a secret like date to do this thing with Mark, so that she could be in a film. She wanted to be like a lead or whatever.
Okay.
And so Mark was helping her with that. So it was a secret. No one knew that they were there.
Well, let me put a damper on that because it's Mark brought up the point of because Vivian was actually very anti it, and Mark says, "No, I put the red light on," and she goes, "Well, people are still going to know that we're in here when you put the red light on." So I mean, it's just a hole in the plot that it was like, okay, so
right, yeah, because you're right. You're absolutely right.
you make all this sound with the the garage door or whatever it was that was coming down. You put on the red light. Where's security? If you're on a film lot, isn't there a 24-hour security? So that's the problem. That's the plot hole right there of like, wait, what the fuck is that red light doing?
They were about as useful as the police, in the film.
Pretty much. And also, what was it? I think someone invited Mark out, after work, but he said that he had a date.
Yeah, I mean, there was that kind of awkward moment between. No, didn't they? Didn't the dude ask Vivian out? And he's like, "No, I have a date with somebody else."
Oh, that's right. That's what it was. Yes, yeah. One of the stagehands or whatever other DP guy, asked Vivian out to go get a drink with her. He's like, "Oh no, I already have plans. I have a date." And so,
right.
It's like there's a little bit of subterfuge there, but yeah, maybe it is kind of like a paper tiger that you can just kind of punch through. It's like it's not a plot device that really works very well.
I mean, the scene was fantastic, but again, you could punch a lot of holes through that. I mean, as far as
that plot hole you could drive a Mack truck through.
Absolutely, but it was a fun scene. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm willing to overlook.
Yeah, I mean the scene between them, and when she's warming up, I love that dance scene. By the way, it was like spot on. It was really good because she's excited, she wants to be the star, even though she's a stand-in. So Mark's, I guess, presenting the world to her of you can be this, but you got to do this, and then it was just like the way he's setting up the scene was beautifully done. The boxes,
right? Yeah,
the
like
lights.
the professionalism of it all. It's like where he's when he's putting down marks and he's using checking her eye line and things like that. And it's kind of putting on airs, as it were, but it's very convincing airs.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like he's gaslighting her. He's just like, yeah, we're gonna film this awesome scene with you, but I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's like a spider leading the fly to the trap.
Yep, exactly right. Yep.
And it was once she realized it was too late and she was dead. And the other thing too, what we find out too, is that he really didn't get the shot he was looking for, because it's like the light faded too fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he didn't capture what he was hoping for, and it's like. And that was that kind of culminated in his kind of confrontation with Mrs. Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the light faded too fast. And he's just his heart is broken.
Right.
It's it's a really fucked up scene.
Right. And then Mrs. Stevens also goes, tell me what you saw. She's intrigued by him as well. So
there's a weird these two ladies that are just
it's almost like a weird love triangle.
Yeah,
it's true.
But yeah, so what ends up getting the police's dander up is when they realize that this guy, what was that conversation you two had with the psychiatrist? Oh, he wanted to know about scoptophilia. It's he has a weird character.
Yeah, but he's a funny character. He's a funny character.
Yeah, he is. What the hell is his name? Actually, I don't see him in the cast list. I think he might have been an uncredited actor, but
that's a shame.
But after this is where he ends up. This is where we get to his final kill with the super hot model from that we met earlier in the film, the porn studio. That actress's name is Pamela Green, and man, she is a tasty slice. Let me tell you. And she was like she was a English glamour model in real life. I don't really know what film she did, but she did model for like some pretty famous people in England. Her name was Millie. And sorry to Millie's boyfriend, who will not be seeing her anymore after her confrontation with Mark Lewis.
But that's the nude scene of
Yes.
the movie, and it's shocking. It's exciting. It's just like, whoa! I just saw that. I mean, it was like because it was a very quick flash, but you saw her breasts in the movie, and you're like, whoa! 1960s. They're showing this.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I was surprised too when I first watched this. Like, damn, like they're showing some nudity here. Like, I mean, I know it's Europe, but yeah, even like back then, it's not really common.
No.
But yeah, but like by this point, the police are kind of following Mark just to see like what happens, and they end up discovering that there was someone that died there, and I know who was in there. And that's kind of like we lead up to the final kind of discussion with like him and Helen, and the police are coming, and this is where we see, I think Helen is coming to the realization of like what Mark has been up to, and she's kind of like frightened by it, and he chooses to like he doesn't kill her, but like we see like what he has been doing to all his victims. He had been killing. He obviously had like the tripod was like what he was using as his weapon, but he also had a mirror attached to his camera so that the victims would have to look at themselves being killed, and that's kind of horrifying in a way. Like that would be a horrible way to die.
Yeah, absolutely. But she is still not attracted to him.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, she still is.
Still,
I mean,
she's still got a lady boner for him.
Yeah, and it was very much of like, just show me.
Yeah, just like just finally like no more barriers, no more half truths. Just tell me everything.
Just show me.
Yep. And I think she's devastated by the fact that he ended up turning the camera on himself, and like kind of he ended up made himself watch what he had been doing to everyone else for God knows how long. And he's like, and we do see like a real look of fear on his face. Like, it's like, Helen, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Which is weird. It's a weird death.
Yeah, it was. I mean, to me, the acting at that scene in particular, Rob, it was very, it was very forced. I mean, to me, it was, I felt like,
the way they kind of like flounced his way, into that knife.
Yeah, and it felt like they sprayed like a water bottle on his face, like he was sweating or perspiring, and just like, I'm so scared.
The British films of like this era, like the like kind of the late 50s going into the 60s into the 70s, kind of do have like this very like kind of quick kind of ends, and it's like, man, that was a little unsatisfying.
Yeah, a little anticlimactic.
Yeah, there's a lot of those films of that era in England that are a little anticlimactic like that.
And then you have dipshit cops that come in. They're like, oh, she's still alive. Let's get her out of here. Fuck this guy.
You know, right? Just leave the body. Yeah, it's almost like leave the gun, take the cannolis from like Godfather.
Yeah.
That's right.
That might be the first Peeping Tom Godfather reference.
I know, right? They said they couldn't be done.
So that's the film. Like I said, this is the grandfather of the slasher, and let me tell you, there's actually a list of like why this is a slasher film that I found interesting. So I'm gonna read these off to you guys. Okay. Recognizable human killer, product of a sick family, check. Victims are beautiful, sexually active women, check. Yeah. Murders taking place in terrible places, check. Weapon is something other than a gun, check. Attacked from attack from victims' perspective, coming with shocking suddenness. Check. And bright and sympathetic final girl, Helen Stevens. Check.
I didn't have sympathy for her.
Okay, well, but she is the final girl in some ways. Though there is, based off of what you're saying, there is a universe where there is a second film where she ends up taking on the mantle of Peeping Tom.
Oh,
which I think, honestly, I would like to see that film, by the way. I think that would be really good.
Having a female antagonist that actually takes over for the guy that she was very attracted to is actually a very good idea.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. And
isn't that what they try to?
So this film,
really quickly, isn't that what they try to do with the American Psycho sequel with what's her face?
Oh, Mila Kunis?
Yeah.
God, that movie's awful. That was not. Yeah. They attached the title of American Psycho to that. It has nothing to do with the first one at all. Like, there's no connection at all. It's fucking horrible.
Oh no?
No, it is dog shit. Okay. Fuck that movie.
Yeah, but I mean, I've never seen the second one, so I don't even. I'm not gonna pretend to know, but just
don't waste
if it worked, I was just going off because of the title, and so if it was that, then that would be an instance where they flipped it, and it was kind of carried on through female protagonists.
Watch the movie Monster with
Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
Oh, watch that. I need to watch that. I heard that's.
I haven't seen that yet either.
She won an Oscar for that, didn't she?
She did.
Yeah. Women always get the Oscar for going ugly.
So this film was, I mentioned this at the beginning. This is a film that that absolutely killed this guy's career, Michael Powell, who had done these amazing films before this. And it wasn't. Let me tell you some of the critics' response to this film. Actually, I'll read my favorite one, which is just messed up. Derek Hill at the Tribune he wrote, "The only real satisfactory way to dispose of Peeping Tom would be to shovel it up and flush it swiftly down the nearest sewer."
Wow. Dang. Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah. Or, here's another one from Len Mosley of the Daily Express. "Neither the hopeless leper colonies of East Pakistan, the back streets of Bombay, nor the gutters of Calcutta has left me with such a feeling of nausea and depression."
Oh my God.
Christ.
Like, wow. God damn. Like, that's
damn. Awesome. These guys are brutal.
Yeah. It's like none of the British critics like this film at all. It ruined the guy's career. The reason that we know of this film today is because of our friend Martin Scorsese. He was a huge fan of Michael Powell and kind of brought him back into prominence in 1979 when he's kind of started showing some of Michael Powell's films again in kind of some revival theaters. And he's a huge fan of this film. And similar to he's been doing with the World Cinema Project, we talked about a film called The Housemaid. Which is a Korean film that he essentially rescued from being lost
to oblivion.
And so the guy pretty much lost his career, nearly went bankrupt, but because of Martin Scorsese, kind of had a revival towards the end of his life, and kind of didn't necessarily direct again, but was able to get work and do some stuff, and he ended up marrying Scorsese's editor. And so, I ended up having a really good end of his life, and, had no regrets for the films that he put out. And, obviously Michael Powell is dead now. He's been dead for a while, but I think it's just this film to me is really interesting. It is a film that, obviously is going to get compared to Psycho, and a lot of these. And a lot of slasher films owe a lot of credit to Peeping Tom, because this is kind of this took all the slings and arrows that, once we get to another decade past this into the 70s, those slings and arrows weren't there anymore because Michael Powell took them because of this movie. And also actually Hitchcock owes this guy a lot of favors too, because I'm not going to have a press screening for my film. So that and obviously we all remember Psycho. It's one of the greatest horror films of all time and always will be. And it's obviously oft remembered and loved. And this film is kind of you have to look for this film. It's kind of like, if you know, type of films. But with that said, like,
I would say that you really can't. You can compare Psycho to this movie just because it came out at about the same time.
2 months. It came out 2 months afterwards.
Yeah, and for me, it just. I agree with you, Rob. I mean, I think what it does is give the slasher movie, life. This was like your little seedling that grew into something else, the Black Christmas. I don't necessarily think Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Exorcist, which came out previous to that, but I mean, it grew this kind of POV, almost sympathetic character to something else, and I appreciate it for that, for sure. Sorry, go ahead.
But no, what I was going to say is, like, what are you guys' final thoughts on the film? We'll give our ratings, and John, you're the guest. Why don't we start with you, buddy?
Yeah, I think I said what I needed to. Yeah, this is a slasher movie with a sympathetic character. It grew, like I said, it was a seedling for something else, I think Bob Clark with Black Christmas kind of took a lot from this movie, which was 14 years later, and it just grew from that. And John Carpenter took from Bob Clark. Other directors took from, John Carpenter. So I think this is an important movie. I think people really need to watch it. Did I get a lot of enjoyment out of it? Yeah. I mean, it was fun. It was a fun watch. I didn't like the score because I think that a lot of movies, even Psycho, did something with the score that just really makes you feel viscerally, in your stomach, where it just feels gross. It feels like, ugh, yeah, this is not a good thing. But it was almost like I laughed at it. But the acting was really good in this movie. I actually really enjoyed it. Even the character of Mark was an enjoyable character to watch, because, like, switching back and forth. But it just gave birth to this, this character that maybe is evil but trying to be good, but it's never going to be good. because of what's embedded in that person. Because the backstory was actually very good. You understand why.
Right. The motivations were very clear.
Correct. And you're not going to get the backstory on Freddy Krueger. You'll get a little bit of why he became Freddy Krueger in Haunting Your Dreams, or what Michael Myers was previous. I think the best comparison is to Michael Myers, because you don't know why. But you understand why a little bit. What are we doing as far as rating?
Out of 5 stars. How would you rate it out of 5 stars, John?
Out of 5 stars, I would actually say this is a 4-star movie that you must watch, because if you've seen movies after this era, you understand why people or why directors took from this movie. So I would give it 4 absolute must watch.
Andy, how about you, buddy?
For me, I think I would agree with John. This is a 4-star movie. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. I do remember watching some reviews about it, prior to us reviewing it, and then the reviewers, spoke very highly of this movie, and like kind of like to the concept that we came up with, like cinematic archaeology. I think it definitely applies to this movie, because as John was saying, how so many directors owe their careers to kind of biting off of this movie. and you totally see it in
Yeah.
like the certain compositions and certain ways, like composition and shots, the way that the camera tracks, following the certain characters and whatnot. It's you see it and you go, oh, I saw that in this movie, or I saw that reminds me of that movie. It's like they all have they all owe their again a lot of people owe their careers to this movie. And again, I definitely love the way that this was shot, and it's so funny because I so happen to be wearing this shirt.
I shoot
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
I mean, me being a photographer, being like a photo nerd, I did kind of because I came up at the time when it was just like transitioning out of film and into digital, so I still worked in a dark room. So so the shots of Mark's dark room, it definitely kind of gave me, I sort of reminisced. It's like, oh, the smell of developer and working with chemicals and things like that. So it was a little bit nostalgic for me.
Yeah, I also love it. Just a quick aside before I get into my rating is I loved how they shot the dark room, because obviously that place it's completely dark. You're kind of you're not really supposed to see anything, but the way that they shot it, it's dark, yet you're still kind of but obviously it's lit very well, so you see everything. Right. But it gives that illusion. It's like, oh, this is a very dark place. This is kind of it's hidden away where no one really knows about it. This is where Mark can be who Mark is.
Right, and even when Helen first comes in there, she looks over at the cabinet and she's like, "What is that?" And he goes, "Chemicals."
Yeah. But yeah, the reason I chose this, I wanted to kind of track the lineage of a genre that John really loves. That's the slasher film. Mm-hmm. And this is, like I said, this is the start right here, this film here. And I love this film, and I agree with you guys. There's a few things that happen in here that keep it from being a 5-star film. The soundtrack is really, it's jarring. Yeah. It does not fit. It sucks. I wish we had someone else do the score to make it a little bit more serious. The way it ends is a little bit abrupt. But overall, the idea of someone filming them killing somebody and making them watch their death, that is a horrifying concept, and it's awesome. I love it. And I can't really think of another film that really does that outside of maybe, like I said, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer kind of has that type of moment where we watch Henry and Otis watch them filming them kill that family, which is horrifying as well. That's also easily as creepy, but that's as close to of a scene that I can think that kind of does something similar. But they're also not being killed with the tripod knife, which is kind of a cool weapon as well. And like I said, I think the acting overall is really great. I think it looks great. But yeah, I'm with you guys too. I think we're all in solidarity here with 4 stars. I think it's a film that horror fans definitely need to watch this. I don't think enough people have seen this. I want to advocate for this film because I think it's something that people need to see, especially for fans of Halloween and Friday the 13th, Black Christmas. Watch this film and kind of see where the films that you love, see where they got their start. It's right here.
Yeah.
In Peeping.
If you want a backstory to your killer, this is fantastic for it because it does give you that backstory of your killer, of why he is the way he is. Right. And it gives a great explanation. And like you said, Rob, I mean, it's really hard with the score to get through. But this is not a long movie. I mean, it's an hour and 40 minutes, and it's just, it moves. It doesn't feel slow because the character development throughout the movie is really, it's good. I don't have any issues with it.
Right, yeah, the pacing was really good in this one. It didn't feel like a slog or anything. Just it moved. Like you said, John, it moved.
But yeah. You have a podcast we talked about, Cut Above. Where can they find you, buddy?
Well, geez, depending on where you get your podcasts, we are everywhere: iTunes, Spotify, Audacity, iHeartMedia, wherever you get your podcasts. A Cut Above Horror Review. We just finished up our 116th episode, which was Pearl. A lot of fun to talk about. We did have our friends from Spoils of Horror on there. We got a lot more coming up. Next month is going to be a lot of fun for us. I don't want to spoil anything of what we got coming up. Perhaps it is a zombie master. That's the hint I'll give.
Okay, I'm intrigued. All right, Andy. People want to find us on Circle of Jerks. We are on Instagram. We are at Circle of Jerks Podcast. On X, whatever you want to call it, we're at Podcast COJ. Same as on Letterboxd. I think that's what I think that's the actually proper name for that is Letterboxd. And
I'm curious, is that the 4-star rating one, Letterboxd?
I think they do 5 stars on that one.
Oh, okay. All right. Just making sure. Sorry.
The only person I know who uses 4 stars is Joe Bob.
That's weird.
Joe Bob says, check it out.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're obviously check out the library of past episodes for Circle of Jerks. John's been on several times. We've talked Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, Halloween, obviously Peeping Tom now. If you and we've also had Heidelberg on from Cut Above, and all these many great guests. So check out those episodes.
Can I give one more plug real quick?
Yes, of course.
Check out Sen Amigos, first episode of Cobra. Fantastic. A lot of fun. You can also find that wherever you get your podcasts. So keep it up, you guys. So Rob, Heidelberg, John, Andy, fantastic. Good job, guys.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
congratulations to Rob.
yeah, we also on Tuesdays we have a live stream every Tuesday. We're talking about news topics, esoteric ideas, shooting the shit. And we also do movie reviews every Tuesday. We are in the middle, as of this recording, we're in the middle, finishing up Fantasy Month, going into Schlocktober 2, Andy's Revenge.
Andy, can you give us a hint of what you're picking?
Oh, it's basically everything that Rob hates.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because last October it was all of the shitty movies that Rob absolutely loves. And so, Rob's giving me allowing me a little payback and allowing me to choose movies he absolutely hates.
Rob, you're fucked, dude.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll come back in Schlocktober 3, and
the what is it? The Get Back Revenge.
Yeah, it'll be Schlocktober 3, Season of Robert. But yeah, so yeah, we're doing that on Nocturnal Transmissions. So go ahead and join us for the live stream, or check out the past libraries that we're talking about over there. And with all that said, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will see you next time.
Deuces.
Peace out, guys.
Double jerk!